All right, man, peace. So one of the ongoing narratives heading into this up-and-coming NBA regular season is what exactly the Golden State Warriors are going to do after they win their fourth championship in 5 years, because it is presumed that that is exactly what is going to happen. Will they be able to keep their main pieces together, or will they make important trades to try to reinvigorate their squad? Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
So after the season, Kevin Durant and KLAY Thompson will both be up for max deals. And if they both stay, the Warriors will have a projected luxury tax bill of $138 million. When asked if this was the last ride for this team, Steve Kerr said the Warriors aren't looking at this like a final dance. Max, how realistic is it that Steve Kerr's wishes come true?
I think that their future will be mostly dependent on what Kevin Durant decides to do, because he's the player that has the most to gain by leaving. I don't think that any of their other players have that much to gain by leaving. Kevin has been dogged with jibes and all type of insults pertaining to how much of a coward and a snake he was for signing with the Golden State Warriors. So he may want to prove his valor by going to another team. I think that the two teams that have the best chance to sign him are the New York Knicks and possibly the Miami Heat, if they're also able to get a Kyrie Irving as well as a Jimmy Butler in the offseason. We'll find out. I'm leaning right now towards Kevin Durant returning to Golden State, but I do believe that he's the person who's most likely to leave. Now, Draymond becomes a free agent after the 2019-2020 season. So what exactly is Draymond going to do? As we saw in episode 1 of LeBron James's show, The Shop, Draymond is certainly not shy about speaking his mind, and he does have some quote-unquote beliefs that could be considered quote-unquote controversial. So we'll see what happens over the course of this next season. Could it be that they may consider signing Boogie Cousins just in case Draymond decides to leave? I'm sure that Bob Myers has a multitude of possible scenarios written on his whiteboard, and he's considering all options.
It's realistic, but it hinges on one thing, and that's Steph Curry's health. You can change any other part on the Warriors, even Draymond Green, if you had the right kind of player. Like, if you swapped out Draymond for, say, PJ Tucker, I'm not saying they would be quite as good, but they still win the championship.
I'm not quite sure about that one. That's a bit of a stretch. Please keep in mind that they won 7 games with the Houston Rockets last year. I'm not going to say that Golden State is that far ahead of the pack as Max Kellerman is making them out to be. As we all know, Max has a penchant for hyperbole. I think that the Celtics are going to be right there with the Warriors as this season goes along. So they are going to have to push the pedal to the metal a little bit in the regular season. I think that they're going to have to win about 65, 66 games to cement home court throughout the playoffs, because I think the Celtics are going to win 60-plus games this year. But we're going to find out. We're also going to see how good the Rockets are going to be this year. The Rockets may win over 60 games again. So do I think that Golden State will just be able to chill out and relax in the regular season like they did last year? Well, they really did not relax. They more suffered from injuries. They won 58 games, but Steph Curry missed like 30 games. Kevin Durant missed something like 14 games, and they still won 58 games. So they're going to have to push it in the regular season a little bit if they want home court.
You swapped out Klay for, I could think of guys, I mentioned Danny Green in a good year. They're still going to win the championship.
Yo, this guy Max Kellerman is something else. He said you could swap out Draymond Green for PJ Tucker, and you could swap out KLAY Thompson for Danny Green. This guy said Danny Green. Wow.
If you swapped out Kevin Durant for Paul George or some facsimile, even if it's not quite as good, there's still, the point is whether or not even they win the championship, that's still the Warriors. They're going to be right there. It's about Steph Curry. If Steph stays healthy, Stephen A.
Well, one could say you could swap out Steph Curry for Kyrie Irving or Damian Lillard if you really want to stretch the hyperbole, Mr. Max Kellerman. I mean, it's just ridiculous, some of the statements that he's making. You could swap out KLAY Thompson for Danny Green. Are you serious?
He's the only non-replaceable part on that team. If Steph stays healthy, they got a shot, because every other part...
Right, but Max Kellerman, that's not the question. The question is, how long can the Warriors keep the band together? That's the question, sir. So the answer is, who is most likely to leave? Who has the most to gain by leaving? That's Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has the most to gain by leaving because he's the player who seems to think that he has the most to prove.
You can mix and to match and bring in an approximation for. Can't do that with Steph.
Yeah, the difference is, though, he can't do as much by himself as the others could do, and that's why you need...
I'm not quite sure if I agree with that, Stephen A. Smith. Steph Curry has shown in the 2 seasons before Steve Kerr got there where he was playing all-star quality basketball, and this was before KLAY Thompson emerged as a great 2-guard. Steph Curry was showing from those 2 previous seasons what he could do by himself. In the 2012-2013 season, they went to the playoffs, and they were able to defeat the Denver Nuggets in the first round. And in the second round, they were able to push the San Antonio Spurs, who eventually got to the finals and should have beat Miami. Golden State, I believe, won 2 games in that series in 2013. And, of course, the series before, when they played against the Denver Nuggets, that team had won something like 57 games. And Golden State kind of shocked them in the playoffs. So Steph has shown there's been a precedent set by Steph Curry that he can be dominant when the onus is on him to carry the load.
Need somebody to be there, which is why the focus has to be on the All Warriors organization as opposed to Steph. Steph is locked in at $207 million. KLAY Thompson does not want to leave, at least at this particular moment in time. He's given every indication that he wants to stay, but he hasn't signed that extension. So it'll be interesting what they're going to do with him. Do you then pay Draymond Green, who's a vital component to their success? Do you go pay Kevin Durant, assuming he wants to stay? Do you make a choice between those 2? And if so, who do you pick? And oh, by the way, now that you've got Anthony Davis in the mix, Anthony Davis is signed with Clutch Sports. And because of one reason and one reason only, they can talk about whatever they want to talk about. Anthony Davis ain't staying in New Orleans.
Right.
He's out. So you're talking New York.
Well, what are you really saying, Stephen A. Smith? Because Anthony Davis has 3 years left on his deal. So what you must be asserting is what I've been claiming, which is that at some point this up-and-coming season, Anthony Davis is going to demand a trade, and he's going to end up either with the Lakers or with the Celtics, whoever is willing to offer more. So that's going to be the biggest narrative in this up-and-coming season. Where will Anthony Davis end up? And if he ends up with the Lakers, does that automatically ratchet up the expectations for LeBron James? If he ends up with the Celtics, do they become the favorites to win the championship?
You're talking LA, you're talking Golden State. Those are the teams to keep your eyes on now. And to a lesser degree, Boston, because of the parts that they have. You know, in the event that you want to trade somebody and you get him, even though I don't see that happening. The point that I'm trying to make is that that's what you're looking at with Anthony Davis. And where right now,
Now, I made a video about this a while ago pertaining to the potentiality of Golden State deciding to trade KLAY Thompson and Draymond Green for Anthony Davis. I'm sure that it'll take a little bit more than that, probably a first-round draft pick as well. But that is on the table. Many Golden State fans got upset with me. It is what it is. Golden State has a very forward-thinking front office. And once again, they do know that there is the potential for Draymond to leave. And if they have a chance to land in Anthony Davis, it would not surprise me if they choose to do so. That would be something very interesting, though, because that would once again recreate that Twin Towers component of Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins. Now, the real question is, would Golden State be willing to recreate that and possibly bring some entropy into the locker room? Because I'm still not quite convinced that Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins like each other very much. It's very hard for me to believe that Anthony Davis went to the New Orleans front office and told them, you guys have to keep DeMarcus, and they said no. I have a hard time believing that. So I have to think that the 2 teams that would be on the front line to get Anthony Davis will be the Lakers and the Celtics in that order.
What you're seeing is the focal point being paid to Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis, because wherever one goes, the other's not going, and it might compel the other to either stay in Golden State or go to Golden State because Kevin Durant leaves. So you just never know. In the end, Joe Lacob, this man and his ownership group is willing to spend the money. The move that they're having to San Francisco is significant because they're printing money. I spoke to people that paid for season tickets that were paying $140,000 a year, and the prices has gone up to over $500,000. Why? Because with the new arena in San Francisco and everything else, they'll be
$500,000 a year for season tickets. Can you believe that shit?
Printing money.
They got the money to do it in Silicon Valley.
They got the money to do it. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's a matter of, okay, this team, when Steve Kerr says what he says, are you really talking about keeping these boys intact or keeping a couple and transition.
But that's what I mean, Stephen.
And just keeping the success.
I hear what you're saying, and by the way,
you know, they may want to consider making a big move like that just to bring some new energy into the locker room, especially if Draymond wants to perpetuate his little back and forth, his proverbial rivalry with Steve Kerr. That's one thing that, once again, you have to watch out for. That's why I make videos pertaining to some of these issues, because I can see certain things lying in the weeds that are going to pop up at any moment. There certainly was an issue in the Golden State locker room last season. David West even confessed to it. Fortunately for them, they have such a strong organization that it never came out. But there were issues in that locker room, and if I'd be a betting man, it revolved around Draymond Green and Steve Kerr.
Wait, just as an aside, just quick. Anthony Davis with a healthy Kristaps Porzingis on the Knicks, or Anthony Davis on Boston, or any team you mention, AD going to, you're like, you get like chills thinking about what could happen. But you're making my point. That's what I mean. You can swap out these different parts. It's still the Warriors. The one irreplaceable part, the hardest guy to swap out is Steph. That's why I'm saying if Steph stays healthy, Steve Kerr can get his.
That's not even an option because he signed.
Absolutely. So that's just Max Kellerman talking as usual, a whole lot of nothing. And once again, he's not even answering the question.
If he got to stay healthy.
The issue is the other part.
He's had an injury.
Right, but that's not what you were saying, Max Kellerman.
Draymond can both leave, KD can leave, so all three of them. All right, guys, a lot more.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things transpire with the Warriors. Stephen A. Smith has brought forth some very compelling options for many of these teams, not just the Warriors, in regards to Anthony Davis. I do believe that Anthony Davis will be the proverbial Helen of Troy this season. He's going to be the person that launches 1,000 ships. There are going to be many teams that are going to be trying to acquire his services, especially if the New Orleans Pelicans get off to a very bad start and he starts to complain, as I believe that he will, at the behest of his agent, Rich Paul. But once again, we'll find out. So peace.